the title of my talk, of my presentation today is Flight Levels, the Missing Link to Business Agility. And just to let you know, it's the very first time that I'm doing this presentation here. So yeah, please be gentle with me if something is not working as expected. Okay, so flight levels, the missing link to business agility. Flight levels. What is actually flight levels and why should we care about it? Well, let's start with why. Okay, so why flight levels? There's this book called Rethinking Agile, which is actually my latest book. And I really tried to answer exactly this question in this book. Why flight levels? So what is the book about? Just to give you a very brief overview. It's basically tells a story about an agile transformation. And in this agile transformation, this organization had some, let's say, goals. And the goal was, one of the major goals was that they wanted to improve their time to market. Yeah. And the supposed solution was, okay, we just need to do this reorganization, cross-functional product teams, and everything will be awesome, right? I mean, that's what we hear, cross-functional product teams and everything is just great. And that's basically what they did. So they really invested the shitload of money. And in the end, the result was time to market increased. So they invested in becoming worse. So that's not the best thing to do, actually. So what was the problem? And these are the problems that I'm somehow highlighting in this book. So they were only focusing on the team level, but there was no agile interactions between the teams. So they had really a lot of agile teams, but they did not interact with each other in an agile way. And that's what you need to do, because if you are in an organization, so I'm talking about 600 people here, in an organization with 600 people, it's just, yeah, a fairy tale that one team alone can deliver directly to the market. So multiple teams need to interact, and they didn't care about this. Another thing is no end-to-end coordination about the value stream. So they really had a very huge value stream, like long process from time to market, and they were just somehow optimizing the teeny tiny wheel of agile development. So software development. There was no agile strategic portfolio management, and yeah, something which I see so often. They wanted to become agile, and the plan to become agile was basically a waterfall plan. So also not so charming, actually. So these were the problems. So when it comes to why flight levels, well, actually, we somehow established flight levels thinking in this organization to exactly address these problems. So if you are in a situation where one of these things might be true for you, maybe flight level might be something for you. So what is it? What is flight levels? Flight levels is, that's how I would phrase it today. So I'm a huge fan of the latest State of Misunderstanding. So maybe in 2 months, the definition is a little bit different. But today I would say flight levels is a thinking model. So it helps you to find out where in an organization you have to do what in order to achieve the results that you want to see. So it's not the recipe which tells you, okay, you only have to do these 8 steps or whatever, and everything will be fine. It's more like a thinking model. This means you are allowed to think. Right? So it's not like it tells you you have to do this and then everything will be great, but you can apply flight levels thinking and come up with great solutions. In the end, it's about 5 activities on 3 levels. So what are these activities and what are the levels? So when you're doing flight levels, you're doing 5 activities. One activity is you visualize your situation. I mean, this whole agile thing, there's so much about visualization, right? We build Kanban boards, we build Scrum boards. When you're doing OKR, you visualize your OKRs. So it's really about understanding how work works in the end. And yeah, even when you're doing flight levels, it's very important that you visualize your current situation. Another activity is that you create focus. What does create focus mean? Well, usually demand always exceeds capability. So there's always more stuff to do than we are capable of delivering. So it would make sense that we create focus, that we not work on all the stuff at the same time, but we create focus and we focus on finishing work instead of starting work. Usually we are quite good in starting, not so good in finishing. So it makes sense to create focus. Establish agile interactions. No method, no framework, nothing is really a solution. So solutions are being made by human beings. So what we need to make sure is that the right people are talking about the right stuff at the right time. And that's what we call agile interactions. So the agile part in this interaction is that the idea is that we rather have more interactions, but not so long interactions, instead of these lengthy meetings once a month. What else? We measure progress. Measuring progress means, well, doing flight levels for the sake of doing it is quite unsexy. We want to achieve something with it. So the idea is, if we come up with some measurements where we can see, are we actually making progress? Are we achieving what we want to achieve? Then we can use this as a feedback loop. So if it's getting better, let's do more of it. If it's getting worse or not better, let's change something, right? So measurement as a kind of feedback loop. And well, these 4 activities, and then there's another activity which basically says improve. So you don't stop doing it. So you iterate around this all the time, yeah? So if we take a look at these 5 activities, I think they are quite general, right? So especially when we are working with Scrum, for instance, I guess each and everything in Scrum can be found there. So we build a Scrum board, we have our task board, we create focus, we do time boxes, for instance, right? Sprints, agile interactions, of course, we have the daily Scrum and all this stuff, measurement, we have our burn down chart, how's it called? Sprint burn down or something like this, right? We do retrospectives. So Scrum pretty much fits in there. OKR pretty much fits in there. So even Kanban fits in there. So it's quite general actually. So why do we formulate something like this? Well, the point is, when it comes to these activities, that you need to apply these activities in different levels in your organization. And these levels are the flight levels. And why do you want to apply these activities at different levels in your organization? Well, the point is that a lot of these agile methods, they are somehow focusing on the team level. Agile teams, cross-functional teams is the holy grail. But if it comes to business agility, and business agility for me is that I, as an organization, act agile on the market. Business agility has nothing to do with agile teams. I mean, it's a good thing to have agile teams, but if you want to become agile on the market, business agility is not the only solution. You need to consider different levels where you basically try to apply these fundamental activities in your organization. And this is the flight levels. We're talking about 3 flight levels. Flight level is a term from aviation. So the higher you fly, the higher the flight level. And depending on the height that you're flying, you see different things. If I'm flying very, very high, I see a lot actually, but I don't see a lot of details. Everything is quite coarse grained. If I fly very low, I see a lot of details, but my vision is somehow restricted. Yeah. And another important thing is, it's not about better or worse. So flying high is not better than flying low. It depends on what I want to do. If I want to fly to New York, from Europe to New York, it might be a smart idea to fly a little bit higher with a fast plane. If I want to cruise around Dublin, it's maybe better to take a helicopter and fly quite low. So it's not about better or worse, but we need to consider these different levels. And the same is true for our organizations. We can even fly on different levels in our organization. For instance, we can fly on flight level 1, which is quite low. And quite low means we see a lot of details. A lot of details like operational stuff what our teams are doing. So flight level 1 is teams working on operational stuff. Usually an organization has more than only one team. So we see multiple flight level 1 systems in an organization, of course. Most of the time, one team alone cannot deliver to the market. So I need multiple teams, and these teams, they need to interact, they need to coordinate in order to deliver to the market. This means if we are in a situation like this, we need to fly a little bit higher. And a little bit higher, in this case, would mean flight level 2. Flight level 2 is end-to-end coordination. End-to-end means, in the best case, from idea to impact. I have an idea, I have impact in the market, or I have a customer order, and I've delivered the customer order. From idea to impact, that's the idea. This is the world of your products. This is the world of your services. And the point is, we need to coordinate multiple teams, or multiple teams need to coordinate in order to deliver value to the market. So the idea is, these teams, they build this flight level 2 board, and we connect the flight level 2 board with the team boards. And now I have a visualization here on this level across my product. I can create focus here. I can establish agile interactions here. I measure progress, and I operate and improve. So I apply these 5 activities, not only on the team level, but also on a cross-team level, if this makes sense. And the cool thing is, I don't care about methods on the team level. From a flight level 2 perspective, teams can do Scrum, teams can do Kanban, or teams can just work. That's also fine, right? So it's not about methods here. It's just we're making sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time. That's the purpose of our flight level 2. Most of the time, an organization has more than only one product or service. So we will see multiple flight level 2 systems. And what we also see quite often is that we have dependencies between our products and services. I guess everybody knows this. If you change something in this product, we need to change something over there and to change something over there. So there are dependencies. To manage these dependencies, what we do is we either build a new board where we see these dependencies, or we bring the already existing flight level 2 boards closer together. And now I see multiple value streams on one board. Now I basically can manage my dependencies across the products. And again, I do a visualization, I create focus across products, I measure progress, and so on, right? So this is flight level 2. Flight level 2, coordination across multiple teams along one product or multiple products. That's what we are doing here. There's one more thing. We can fly a little bit higher still, and then we are at flight level 3. Flight level 3 is strategy. Strategy means what we're trying to do here is we want to align the work in the organization on the strategy, and we also want to create visualization, do a visualization here. We want to create focus at this level, measure our progress, and so on, right? What we of course do, we connect the flight level 3 with the flight level 2, and quite often actually also with the flight level 1 directly. Yeah? And most of the time, an organization does not only have one flight level 3 system. We often have multiple flight level 3 systems because we have, I don't know, multiple sites where we are, multiple countries where we're at, or we basically have multiple, or sometimes we have multiple products. So we have multiple strategy boards in an organization. So this is the flight levels. This is the 3 levels. As I said before, it's not about better or worse. It depends on the problem that we're trying to solve. So I could take the best strategic decisions up here and create focus and everything on my flight level 3. But if the teams are not delivering, that's the wrong level. So whenever we improve something in our organization, whenever we want to change something, we need to consider all these levels, because otherwise we are probably pulling the wrong lever and we're just wasting money and not more. So the point is to establish these 5 activities now on these 3 levels. The point is, when you take a look at this picture, it's just an overview picture which helps you to understand the flight levels. In real life, it looks like this. These are so-called work systems topologies. Well, work system topology is a quite new name. It's the first time that I say it in public. In our community, we are trying to find words, and that's at least the latest state of misunderstanding, where we think, okay, work system topology doesn't sound too wrong, but what does it mean, what we are seeing here? We are basically seeing the boards, the work systems that we need to build in our organization, on what flight level they are. This is somehow represented by the color here, and how they are connected together, right? So the point is, when you start with flight levels, you need to come up with this topology diagram so that you see, okay, how are we actually connecting our work systems? Yeah. One thing is to connect the work systems. That's good. But when there's something connected, well, it would be nice if some work is flying or flowing over these boards now. And that's the second step, what we need to do. So one thing is, so we need to connect the flight levels and we somehow need to, keep them alive. This is a gentle reminder. David, I didn't forget about it. David asked me always to put in this URL. If you want to ask a question, then it's tinycc/askklaus. It's a good point in time to open the web page right now. Okay, connecting flight levels. What does this mean? I will try to explain what it means if you're connecting the flight levels from the strategy to operations. This means how can we actually deliver strategy with flight levels? So let's take a look at strategic goal setting first. What I see quite often in organizations is that organizations have a vision. We want to, I don't know, make all the information on this planet to everybody accessible. Something like this is the Google vision. Everything and all is quite a lot actually. So we see it's not a concrete goal that we will achieve. It's more like time span infinite. It's more like, okay, that's the reason why we are actually here. Then we have, I don't know, mission, values, whatever. And then we have something like a strategy. The strategy tells us how to get closer to the vision. The time span depends on your organization. I see quite a lot of 3-year strategies or 5-year strategies in other industries, like old economy industries, maybe even 10-year, 20-year if you are dealing with infrastructure. But yeah, we have something like a strategy, right? So let's say 3 to 5 years. So we know what we want to do in the next 3 to 5 years. What we also see quite often in organization, that teams are working on epics, stories, and tasks. So now we are on the weeks level. So we need to deliver in 4 weeks or something like this. And most of the time, or quite often, here in between strategy and something like epics or stories, there's a huge void. Like we don't know what's going on here. So, and this triggers some problems, of course, because we need to somehow, connect these gaps, because especially what I see quite often, and I can just share my experience, that we are thinking in different time horizons actually. So for instance, people who are somehow dealing with strategy, they are like, we need to enter the Chinese market in 2 years. And the guys who are actually working on this stuff, they're like, are you totally crazy? It doesn't work in our market. It will never work in China. They have these funny letters and everything. Yeah, it will never work there. So it's quite hard. And what I also see the other way around quite often. So here, the team level, they are like, what are our priorities? I'm missing the priorities. Can please someone get to our board and help us prioritize? This doesn't work. I mean, they are like, yes, in 2 years, we are entering the Chinese market. What you are doing in the next 2 weeks, I have no freaking idea. But in 2 years, we rule China, kind of. So we see it's a little bit tricky here. So what do companies do to overcome this, I mean, not too many companies, but more and more companies, we break it down. We break down the strategy to, for instance, yearly objectives. So this means this is all the stuff what we need to do, but what are actually the things that we can achieve in the next year? Then when we have our yearly objectives, we break it down to quarterly objectives. Quarterly objectives means we're talking about month here. When we're talking about month, it's no longer so far away from talking about weeks, right? So bridging this gap somewhere is quite important, and flight levels can help you do so. This is another breakdown. It's a little bit different than the one on the slide before. And it's just an example. I don't know how your organization is breaking it down. It's an example, right? Flight level doesn't say you have to do initiatives, epics, and stories. You are allowed to think, okay? So how can flight levels help you here? What we see quite often is that the flight level 3 somehow includes the strategy and tries to break it down until there are some concrete actions. Yeah, that's part of your flight level 3 board. That's the idea behind it. When I say strategy is included, for me, the strategy itself is outside of flight levels. So I don't know if you need to go to China or if it's better to, I don't know, conquer another market. So flight levels is not a strategy tool like helps you to come up with a strategy, but if there is a strategy, flight levels can help you to deliver this strategy. So then the flight level 2 connects here at the initiative, for instance, in this example, and breaks it down to epics. And the flight level 1 connects with the epic and breaks it down to stories, tasks, whatever. And as I said before, this is just an example. Maybe in your context, this looks different, but that's the idea behind it. So if we take a closer look here at the flight level 2, what we see is this work item, the initiative, is part of the flight level 3 board, and it's also part of the flight level 2 board. So this is how you basically connect flight level 3 and flight level 2, right? And flight level 2, as it's in the middle between flight level 3 and flight level 1, in this particular example, we have epics, and the flight level 2 connects to the flight level 1 with the epics. So they share common work items. I will show you later why this is important. So this is how we basically connect flight levels together. Why is this breakdown important? Because what we are doing here is we are creating focus by closing the time funnel. What does this mean? For instance, let's assume we have something like a 3-year strategy. So in 3 years, we need to deliver all this stuff because this keeps us alive, right? So we have a lot of stuff if we think of, okay, what shall we deliver in the next 3 years? The point is, if we break it down to, okay, that's good, but what does this mean for the next year? Not everything that we are thinking of for the next 3 years fits into the 1 year bucket, but 1 year is still quite a lot. So again, we need to somehow make this funnel more narrow, if this is English. More narrow sounds more natural, I don't know. So we need to make it more narrow, actually. So we're talking about months here, and then when we're talking about weeks, we are on the team level. So what we are also doing with flight levels, we are also somehow creating focus, because what we are doing is we are only focusing on these things in the next 2 weeks and not on the entire 3 years bucket. So we are also making the funnel closer, narrower. All right. Now this is just the theory behind it. Now one concrete example. Okay, what does this mean? Again, if you want to ask a question, tinecc/ask Klaus. Klaus is me. Okay, interactions, a case study. Well, Getting back to this picture, this is a work systems topology of the company where I now show you how they are delivering their strategy. There's one thing you might notice here. So you see some flight levels, they are blending together. Like we have boards here, like the business intelligence board, the OEM board, private seller boards. That's a mixture between flight level 1 and flight level 2, because it's just a small amount of people, I guess, I don't know, between 10 and 20 people or something like this, but they own the entire value stream, so they can really deliver to the market. But for instance, here, core experience is just a flight level 2 system, and there are 12 teams connected with this core experience board. So, and here, this one, the company wall. The company wall is a mixture between flight level 2 and flight level 3. So there is a lot of strategy on it. And they also have some steps how to operationalize this strategy, but I will show you the boards in a minute. And you see also guys like HR, sales, marketing, lawyers, they're also connected in this case to the company wall. And there is a good reason why they are doing it like this, but we don't have time to cover all the stuff here. But just want to give you an overview of the topology we're dealing with this example. You will see the company wall. You will see the dealer board, which is a flight level 2 board, and you will see one of these 16 boards here, which are connected to the dealer, okay? So this is the company wall. This is the dealer board. How's this now working? Well, we've defined something what I call work routes. One thing is that we have the boards. The other thing is that we need to connect the boards, and then work needs to flow across the boards. What we see here, and I'll just give you a brief overview. What we see here is on the company wall, here we see the strategy and some KPIs that they want to achieve. The dealer in this case, and all the other flight level 2 systems like what you've seen before, OEM, private seller, and so on, they pull in the strategy and they somehow refine it. Like, okay, and this is the company strategy, we want to rule the world or whatever. And they're like, okay, and what does this mean for our dealer product? So dealer is a product, yeah? So what does this mean for us? So they break strategy down here. And what they are doing next is they define canvases. In their world, a canvas is basically something where they try to nail the strategy jelly to the wall, more or less. You know, strategy is jelly. It's like, we don't know what it really means. How do we get there? They're like, okay, a canvas is the first idea how we could do it. The canvas in this particular organization, I'm not sure if this is the definition of canvases, but in this particular organization is infinite in terms of time. So it could be 2 days or 2 years. They're just like, okay, we want to somehow make it more concrete what we are talking about. The canvas is then transformed, or they generate initiatives out of a canvas. An initiative is defined as something that has impact in the market in 3 months. So here we have a clear time bound. This means impact in the market after 3 months. So now we have an initiative. Initiative is, yeah, we're dealing with the 3 months now, is something where actually teams could start working on it. The point is they now do not start working on it. So they don't pull it in here, but what they are doing is they put the initiative up to the flight level 3 board in this case. And not only the dealer bring their initiatives up to the flight level 3 board, all the other flight level 2 boards, they bring their initiatives for the next 3 months up to the flight level 3 board. From the side, there are also some initiatives flying in. Good ideas like, for instance, GDPR and stuff like this, that are basically entering the system from the side. And what they are doing now is they are trying to decide in the so-called strategy planning. And again, strategy planning is nothing that flight level suggests you have to do. It's just what they are doing. And I think in this case, it makes sense. They're having a strategy planning where they are like, okay, what makes sense for our organization that we deliver to the market in the next 3 months. So all the Flight Level 2 systems, more or less decide what they are delivering to the market in the next 3 months here. And when they have this decision, they start with the delivery process. So this is more like the decision process, and now there's the delivery process. In the delivery process, the first thing what they are doing is a delivery planning. This means, okay, this is the idea, what we want to deliver, but can we really do it in terms of, are we able to do it? So do we have all the people that we need? Do we have the resources that we need? So what is the sequence and so on? So we are trying to come up with dependency maps and stuff like this, where we said, like, okay, that could be working maybe for the next 3 months to deliver it. And if they have this delivery plan, well, delivery starts. This means the Flight Level 2 systems, they pull in the work again from the Flight Level 3 system. Now we have an initiative here. And remember, below the Flight Level 2 system are the teams. The teams, they don't take the initiative and work on the initiative, because the initiative impact in the market within 3 months, that's too big for them. So what the teams are doing, they are going to this Flight Level 2 board, and the teams, they are slicing the initiatives into epics. Epics is a unit where teams are like, okay, we can work on epics in terms of size. So we are dealing with epics here. If you just take a look at this Flight Level 2 board, we see a lot of different work item types. We see strategy, KPI, we see canvases, we see initiatives, we see epics. So when you really think about end-to-end flow, the work item transforms from idea to impact. And even what we also see here, the work basically starts on a Flight Level 2 system and goes up to Flight Level 3 and comes back. And that's their implementation. It's not like you have to do it like this, but yeah, they've chosen this way because it's not like, okay, we in top management know what the company needs to do and they decide everything. So you see a work route which goes up. So now we have epics here, and yeah, it's like before the teams, they just take the epic now on their team board. Maybe they are doing Scrum, they are doing Kanban, they are, I don't know, design thinkers, I don't know what they are doing. And from the point of view of the Flight Level 2, actually, I don't care. But we know we are talking about this epic, and the teams, they're working on the epic now. And most teams, they split it into stories, into tasks, and then they're working on it. So this is work routes. This means we also need to know, so when we know what the boards are, we also need to know how to connect them, and we need to know what work is actually flowing across the boards. And what we've seen here is only 2 work routes. There are multiple. We've just seen this work route: Canvas, initiative, up Flight Level 3, down, initiative, epic, epic story on the team level. That's one route that we've seen. We've seen another route. Initiative starts on a Flight Level 3 system, goes down to Flight Level 2, to generate epics out of it, epic story. So this is all strategy work, right? There's another route in this organization. It's like this. So the teams in this organization are like, okay, we can do stuff on our own without coordination with all the other products and stuff. So they basically have a time budget which they can spend just working on their crazy ideas. So there's another flight route, right? So it's just on the team level. And there's another flight route. Flight route was the wording a couple of hours before. So there's another work route, and that's actually a quite important work route: operational work, business as usual. So not all work in your organization is strategic work. Depending on how mature your market is and how low your margins are, it's often as unromantic as, I don't know, 10% of your work is strategic work and the rest is just business as usual. So in this particular case, the teams in the dealer product, they have to deal with a lot of operational work. So this is another work route. So if we bring all these work routes together, we see a picture like this. So, and this is more or less all these puzzle pieces, what I've shown to you right now, is something what we call a flight levels architecture. A flight levels architecture needs something like a topology of your work systems. So when you really think agility beyond the team level, it's not each and every team needs to be agile. We need to come up with agile interactions between the teams. And to understand this, we need to come up with a topology first. So, and agile interactions between the teams means, for instance, here, core experience, these 12 teams, they are all working on the same product. So the point is, these teams, they build this core experience board, and they bring up all their dependencies, and they manage all the dependencies and all the work across all these 12 teams, right? And yeah, in an organization where, I don't know, a couple of hundred people are working around, you need to come up with this topology so that you need, okay, what work systems do we actually need, on which level, and how are they connected? What you also need to be aware of, what are your work items? I've pointed out on the flight level 2 system that there are multiple work items on this flight level alone. Why is this important? Well, if you really want to connect your different work systems, we need to have at least some interfaces, and the interfaces are the work items. Yeah. So if team A is expecting an epic from the flight level 2 system, and team B is expecting an initiative, well, good luck with that, right? So we need to at least come up with some minimum requirements of how the teams can collaborate. And this is our work items. And the cool thing is, when, for instance, we agreed that the interface between flight level 2 and flight level 1 is an epic, I don't care what teams are doing with this epic. They can, I don't know, just work on it. They can build, I don't know, a to-do list. I don't care. But when we are talking, we're talking about epics. That's what we need to make clear here. And we have our work routes, and work routes has a lot about to do, okay, how's work flying across our company in the end. And when you just take a look at the work routes, what you see is, you see culture, actually. If your work routes are like this, they are just from top down, just top down, and there's no work route which goes up. This means you have some very smart people somewhere up there who know what's the best for the entire organization. If you have many flight routes which go from somewhere flight level 1, flight level 2 upwards, this means you are taking your teams, you're including them in the decision-making process of what we are actually going to work on. And if you see flight routes which are just handled on the team level, this means you give your teams quite a lot of freedom. So you can even read a lot about the culture in your organization when you just take a look at your work routes. Yep, so that's the flight levels systems architecture. And that's one of the first things what we do when we start with flight levels. We try to come up with exactly this. That's not the one and only thing, of course, because if we then have our topology, we need to apply the 5 activities on each box of our topology. We need to think about agile interactions and so on. So there are steps that we also need to do. Just having this fancy picture doesn't solve a lot, but it helps to understand which boards you need, which work systems you need, and how do you need to connect them. And the cool thing behind this, at least what I find very valuable, we are not talking about methods here. So it's totally method agnostic. So I don't care if teams are doing Scrum, Camp, and design thinking. I mean, even there's an organization I'm working with. There's a whole part of the organization is doing safe, another part is doing less. and there are also some agile teams somewhere. But what we are doing is we are using flight levels basically to connect these agile islands and to align them together, because even the safe island has to collaborate with the less island, right? So it's not about methods, it's not about framework, it's about business agility in the end. And that's also my conclusion. So for me, business agility is totally not about methods and frameworks, not at all. What we need to do is, when we're talking about business agility, we need to make all our work systems to interact with each other. We need to build agile interactions between all our agile islands that we probably have in our organization. And yeah, that's everything I wanted to say. There are some things I want to offer you. I would like to offer you. So there's the book Rethinking Agile. You can, if you follow this link, you can get the copy for only $7.77, and usually I guess it's 20 something dollars. And if you want to learn more about flight levels, go to the Flight Levels Academy website. There's a list of flight level systems architecture workshop. That's actually what I was talking about. And there's also a couple of board design workshops, coaching workshops. So we offer quite a lot. So this one, July 6th and August 10th, is in English, which is good if you are not good in German. And I do it, I co-facilitate with Jose Casal, probably some of you know him, and JP Bailey. They are based in nearby London, I guess. Yeah, that's it. Cool, thank you. There is a question from Natalia Helesu. I'm not good with pronouncing names, as you've already heard before. So Natalia is asking, flight levels and OKR, from your perspective and experience, how do, I need to close this window. How do the actual OKR sets per level, the OKR alignment process, with the flight levels thinking model? Practical example of how companies combine it as well. How can I answer this question? Well, as I already said before, flight levels is totally not about, it is method agnostic. And so what we see that quite a lot of organizations are using flight levels and OKR together. I was just talking at the podcast, Super Kinetics, with an OKR specialist, more or less. And we were exactly talking about this, thing. So yes, you can easily combine it. The problem is the Super Kinetics podcast is in German, so not so good to understand maybe. But yes, you just combine it. So what you're doing is you think of, okay, where do we have our OKRs? OKRs is also quite a lot about the flight routes. Usually OKRs start somewhere at the team level. Hopefully we bring ideas up. We have our OKR planning up there, and then OKRs go down again in the organization. So it fits quite well together. And regarding examples, yes, I have tons of slides. Maybe I can add something to, is there something like show notes or something like this, David? Maybe I can add a link to an example or so when you send to the participants.
Yeah, absolutely. You can add it to the chat, or if you want to send it to me as well, I can send it around to everyone. Yeah.
I need to dig it out somewhere.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, we'll share through our meetup.com. We'll share cool. any links you have for any participants.
Yeah. So Corecut asks, what are the first 3 information you collect about an enterprise which won't implement flight level 2 and flight level 3 company-wide? Well, I don't know if the very first question I always ask is, why do we want to do something like this? So what do we want to achieve? As I already said, doing flight levels for the sake of doing flight levels is really unsexy. So what do we want to achieve? That's the very first question. And then we talk about their products and services, because if we're targeting flight level 2, that's more or less what you're managing there. And yeah, then we already start building the flight levels architecture. And the good question is always, do you have a strategy? The answer is most of the time yes, but well, our strategy is we are a bank. That's what I see quite often. So, well, we can, okay, that's a whole different discussion. So yeah, this would be my first questions, if this makes sense. Indy, on your example, where would things like market or user research, discovery, validate ideas happen? Ah, that's a very good question. Would it be a part of the Canvas thing? Yes, exactly. If you remember the Flight Level 2 system, it started with a Canvas. We had these initiatives, and then there was this Epic thing. So Epic was the delivery part. And before, this was more like the discovery part, user research and everything. And what we see here is that we have different groups of people who are working on the same board. So we have market researchers and stuff working more on the left side, and we have the others, developers, working on the right side. But we have also developers working on the left side, because maybe we need to do a prototype or something like this. Of course, the developers are doing it. And that's another thing where we need to find a trade-off. So if we are only working on the right side, this means we are earning money right now. If we're working on the left side of the Flight Level 2 board, this means we are hopefully earning money in the future, because that's what we want to build in the future. And the cool thing is, if you have this information on a Flight Level 2 board, you need to balance this, because if you're only working on stuff where we're earning money today, well, what are you doing in the future? And even people from the right side work on the left side and the other way around. But the answer is yes, that's exactly the part on the left side of the board. So there is another question from David. How does a product roadmap tie into flight levels? We've seen it on the board, actually, on the Flight Level 2 board. So the Flight Level 2 in my example is a product. It's a dealer product for car dealers. And the entire upstream was just a product roadmap, actually. So there was not much flow or something like this going on. It was more like, okay, that's the stuff that we want to deliver in the next quarter. That's the stuff we want to deliver in Q+2, and that's the stuff in Q+3. So this is how the upstream was structured. And it was structured, so you've seen lines like swim lanes. And these swim lanes, these were strategic directions. So you basically had a roadmap tied into the Flight Level 2 board, where you could see when do we want to deliver which strategic items, or which topics that basically pay into certain strategic items. So yeah, you just build it into your flight levels board. All right. I guess we have time for one more question, right? Or so?
Yeah, let's do one more. Yeah.
Yeah, great. One more. Brett is asking, who is responsible for keeping Flight Level 3 artifacts? I always need to be careful, because in German we say Artefakt, and there's the F word in it, you know. So artifacts is correct in English, right? So who is responsible to keep the Flight Level 3 artifacts up to date and aligned with what is happening below? Well, good question. Depends on your organization. If you have an organization where you have very smart people who exactly know what the entire organization needs to do, it's probably top management. Whatever top management is. The flight level way of seeing the world is a little bit different. The flight level world is like this. Here are a couple of teams, and these teams, they are working on the same product, on the same service. So these teams, they need to coordinate these 12 teams like what we've seen before. So these teams, they build a flight level 2 system where they coordinate their work and they come up with ideas who's actually responsible to keep this thing alive. And then we probably have multiple products in our organization. And what we need to do is we need to align to the strategy. So the idea is that the people from the products, which are basically people from the team, build the flight level 3 board. And they, again, come up with ideas who's responsible to operate this board. So this would be the way how you approach it when there's no hierarchy, no organization whatsoever in your organization. Most of the time you have something like hierarchy, and you have middle managers, you have, I don't know, you have teams, you have top management, and yeah, you somehow answer this question by thinking through what it means. So that's what I meant in the beginning, like, okay, you're allowed to think. This means you need to come up with a solution that works in your culture, if this makes sense.